The morning sun rose over New Montana like it had for the past 10 years. The fields stretched out in golden waves, and the air smelled of fresh earth and growing crops. Jake Morrison stood on his porch, watching his son Danny run toward the transport shuttle that would take him to school. The boy waved back at his father, his backpack bouncing on his shoulders. Jake smiled and waved back. This was why he had left Earth. This peaceful life under an alien sky was everything he had dreamed of when he retired from the military. No more wars, no more violence, just farming and family. He turned back into the house to finish his coffee when his comm unit buzzed. It was Laura Chen, the colony governor. "Jake, we have a situation. Can you come to the command center?" Her voice was tight with worry. Jake felt his old instincts kick in. He had been the head of the colony militia for 5 years now, but it had been mostly paperwork and training exercises. Nothing serious ever happened this far from the core worlds. "On my way," he said. 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display. 3 large ships hung in space above their planet. They were Vraxian vessels, easily identifiable by their dark hulls and aggressive design. "They appeared an hour ago," Laura said. "No warning. No communication. They just dropped out of hyperspace and took position over our main settlement." "Have they made any demands?" Jake asked. "Not yet. But Vraxians don't make social calls." Jake knew she was right. The Vraxian Empire had a reputation. They were raiders and slavers, taking what they wanted from weaker worlds. The Galactic Council had rules against such things, but enforcement was another matter. The comm system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the room, speaking in heavily accented Galactic Standard. "Human colony of New Montana. This is Commander Zarkoth of the Vraxian Empire. Your world now falls under our protection. You will provide tribute of 1,000 tons of processed grain, 500 units of refined metals, and 100 of your young to serve as workers. You have 1 standard hour to begin loading." Laura's face went pale. 100 young? They want our children? Jake felt ice in his stomach. Danny was at school with 99 other children. Laura activated the comm. "Commander Zarkoth, we cannot comply with your demands. This colony is under the protection of the Galactic Council. Your actions violate at least 12 interstellar treaties." The laugh that came back was cruel. "The Council? Those talkers do nothing. They will debate and form committees while we take what we want. You have 55 minutes. The connection cut off. Jake was already moving. "Get everyone to the shelters. Contact Earth. Send them everything we have. And Laura, tell them what these people want. Tell them about the children." "What are you going to do?" Laura asked. "Buy time. Get the militia ready. And pray that Earth responds faster than the Council does." The next 30 minutes were chaos. Alarm sirens wailed across the colony. Families ran for the underground shelters built into the bedrock. The militia, barely 200 farmers and workers with basic training, gathered at designated points with their weapons. Jake made it to the school just as the teachers were evacuating the children. He grabbed Danny, holding him tight for a moment. "Dad, what's happening?" Danny asked, his voice small. "Bad people came, but I'm going to make sure you're safe. Go with Teacher Maria to the shelter. Don't come out until I come get you, understand?" Danny nodded, trying to be brave. Jake watched him go, then turned to face the sky. The Vraxian ships began their descent. They were not subtle about it. Bright beams of energy lanced down from orbit, striking the edges of the settlement. Buildings exploded. Fields burned. The message was clear: comply or be destroyed. Jake's comm buzzed. It was Laura. "They're landing ground forces. 3 locations. They're heading for the main shelter and the school shelters." "They know where the children are," Jake said grimly. "They planned this." He gathered his militia. 200 people against an unknown number of professional soldiers. But they were protecting their families. That had to count for something. The Vraxians came in armored transport craft. They landed in the town square and soldiers poured out. They were tall, heavily muscled beings with thick armor and powerful weapons. Each one looked like they could take on 3 humans easily. Jake's militia opened fire from their positions. Their rifles cracked and some shots hit, but the Vraxian armor was too strong. The return fire was devastating. Energy bolts tore through walls and vehicles. Within minutes, Jake knew they were losing, but they kept fighting. Every second they held was another second for the message to reach Earth, another second for help to come. Commander Zarkoth himself led the assault on the school shelter. Jake saw him, a massive Vraxian in decorated armor, directing his troops with brutal efficiency. Jake tried to reach the shelter first, but a blast threw him back. He hit the ground hard, his rifle flying from his hands. When he looked up, Vraxian soldiers were already at the shelter door, forcing it open. "No!" Jake screamed, struggling to his feet. He watched helplessly as they pulled the children out. The kids were crying, terrified. Teachers tried to shield them and were shoved aside. Danny was there, looking around frantically for his father. Their eyes met across the chaos. Jake tried to run forward, but two Vraxian soldiers blocked his path. He fought them with everything he had, but they were stronger. One hit him with the butt of his weapon and Jake went down. Through blurred vision, he saw them loading the children onto transport craft. Danny was looking back at him, tears streaming down his face. Then the door closed and the craft lifted off. Jake tried to stand, but his body would not cooperate. He could only watch as 3 transport craft rose into the sky, carrying away 100 children. His son. All of their children. Commander Zarkoth walked past him, not even bothering to finish him off. "Your resistance was admirable but pointless. The children will serve the Empire well. They will learn to be grateful for the opportunity." Jake found his voice. "Earth will come for them." "You made a mistake," Zarkoth laughed. "Earth? The weak humans who beg and plead before the Council? Who accept every insult and every loss with their pathetic diplomacy? They will do nothing. They always do nothing." The commander returned to his ship. Within an hour, the Vraxian fleet departed, leaving behind burning buildings and devastated families. Jake finally managed to stand. Other survivors were emerging from the shelters. The sound of crying filled the air as parents realized their children were gone. Laura found him. She had blood on her face from a cut, but she was alive. The message got through to Earth. They confirmed receipt. "How long until help comes?" Jake asked. "I don't know. But I sent them everything. The attack, the demands, the children, everything." Jake looked at the sky where the Vraxian ships had disappeared. His hands shook with rage and grief. They took Danny. They took all of them. That night, as they counted their dead and treated their wounded, Jake sat in the ruins of the command center. Laura worked on sending more detailed reports to Earth and to the Galactic Council. "The Council will have to act," Laura said, though her voice lacked conviction. "This is too blatant. Too many witnesses." Jake did not answer. He was preparing one more message, a personal one. He addressed it directly to Earth Defense Command. He kept it simple. "This is Colonel Jake Morrison, retired. New Montana colony was attacked by Vraxian forces. They took our children. 100 kids, including my son. The youngest was 6 years old. The council will debate. The council will form committees. But those children need action, not words." He paused, then added the last line. "They took our children. Do what must be done." He sent the message and sat back. Around him, the colony tried to put itself back together. Fires were extinguished. Wounded were treated. But nothing could fix the holes left by those missing children. 3 days later, supplies arrived from a nearby colony. A week later, Earth sent official condolences and promises to work through proper channels. The Galactic Council scheduled a hearing for 3 months away. Jake barely heard any of it. He spent his days helping rebuild and his nights staring at the stars, wondering where Danny was, wondering if his son was scared, wondering if he was hurt. On the 10th day, Laura found him at the memorial they had built for the 37 colonists who died in the attack. "I got a message from Earth," she said quietly. "Not an official one. It came through military channels, encrypted." Jake looked at her. "It just says, 'Hold on, we are coming.'" For the first time since the attack, Jake felt something other than despair. It was not hope, not exactly. It was something harder, something colder. It was certainty. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Vraxians were celebrating their easy raid. They had taken children from a weak species and faced minimal resistance. It was just another successful operation. But Commander Zarkoth had made a mistake. He had assumed that human restraint meant human weakness. He had mistaken politeness for inability. He had forgotten the most important rule when dealing with predators. Never, ever threaten their young. Earth had been polite for 50 years. Earth had followed the rules. Earth had accepted insults and losses because they believed in peace. But the Vraxians had crossed a line that should never be crossed, and now Earth was done being polite. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez sat in her office on the Galactic Council station, staring at the report from New Montana. She had read it 5 times, and each time the words hit harder. 100 children, taken, enslaved. She had served as Earth's representative for 20 years. 20 years of careful diplomacy, of building relationships, of proving that humans were not the violent primitives some species believed them to be. 20 years of swallowing insults and accepting compromises. And now this. Her assistant, a young woman named Karen Phillips, entered with a cup of tea. "Ambassador, the emergency council session is in 1 hour. I have prepared your presentation." "Thank you, Karen." Helen took the tea but did not drink it. Her stomach was too tight. "This time will be different. It has to be. The evidence is clear. The crime is undeniable." Karen nodded, but her expression was doubtful. She had seen too many council sessions end with nothing but words. The Galactic Council chamber was an impressive sight. It was a vast circular room with seats for representatives from 47 different species. Holographic displays showed real-time translation in hundreds of languages. The architecture spoke of power and unity. But Helen had learned that impressive architecture did not equal effective action. She took her seat in the human section and waited. Around her, other representatives chatted casually as if this were just another routine meeting. Only a few looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. High Chancellor Mordak called the session to order. He was an ancient being. His species long-lived and slow to act. He looked down at Helen from his elevated platform. "Ambassador Rodriguez has requested this emergency session." "The floor is yours, Ambassador." Helen stood. She activated the holographic display, and images filled the chamber. Burning buildings, wounded colonists, and then the most damning evidence, video footage of Vraxian soldiers forcing children onto transport ships. "Members of the council," Helen began. Her voice steady despite the emotion churning inside her. 10 days ago, the human colony of New Montana was attacked by Vraxian military forces. This was not a border dispute. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate raid on a civilian population. She let the images speak. The faces of terrified children were clear. Some were crying. Some were calling for their parents. The youngest was a little girl named Sophie, only 6 years old. She clutched a stuffed animal as soldiers dragged her away. 37 colonists were killed. 200 were injured. And 100 children between the ages of 6 and 15 were taken. According to Vraxian transmissions we intercepted, these children are being transported to slave markets. The chamber was silent. Some representatives looked genuinely shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked bored. Helen continued. "This violates the Treaty of Galactic Peace, Articles 15 through 23. It violates the Child Protection Accords. It violates the Anti-Slavery Convention. I am not here to debate legal technicalities. I am here to demand action." She paused, looking around the chamber. "These are children. If we cannot protect children, what purpose does this council serve?" High Chancellor Mordak nodded slowly. "A tragic situation indeed. Does the Vraxian representative wish to respond?" Senator Corval stood. He was a thin being with sharp features and cold eyes. Helen knew he had financial ties to Vraxian trade interests. Everyone knew, but no one could prove it officially. "The Vraxian Empire regrets any unfortunate incidents," Corval said smoothly. "However, we must consider the full context. New Montana is in disputed territory. The colonists may have provoked this response through their presence." Helen felt anger surge through her. Provoked? By farming? By raising their children? What provocation justifies enslaving a 6-year-old girl? "Please, Ambassador," Mordak said. "Let us maintain proper decorum." Another representative stood. This was Zilara, from a species that had also suffered Vraxian raids decades ago. Helen had hoped for support from her. "While we sympathize with the human position," Zilara said carefully, "we must remember that military intervention could escalate the situation. Perhaps a diplomatic solution could be found." A diplomatic solution? Helen could not keep the disbelief from her voice. "The children are already gone. What diplomacy will bring them back?" "We could open negotiations with the Vraxian Empire," another representative suggested. "Perhaps arrange for compensation." "Compensation? You want to pay ransom for kidnapped children? That will only encourage more raids." The debate went on for 3 hours. Representative after representative spoke. Some expressed concern. Others urged caution. A few suggested that humans should simply accept the loss and move on. Not one suggested sending a rescue mission. Finally, High Chancellor Mordak called for a decision. It is clear that this matter requires careful consideration. I propose we form a special committee to investigate the incident and prepare recommendations. How long will this investigation take? Helen asked, though she already knew the answer. These things cannot be rushed. I would estimate 6 months for a thorough investigation. 6 months? Those children could be anywhere in the galaxy by then. They could be dead. We must follow proper procedures, Ambassador. All in favor of forming the investigation committee? 32 representatives voted in favor. 10 abstained. Only 5 voted against, including Helen. The motion passes. This session is adjourned. Helen sat in her seat as the chamber emptied. Karen came to her side. I am sorry, Ambassador, they did nothing. They saw everything, heard everything, and they did nothing. What will you tell Earth? Helen stood slowly. The truth. That we are on our own. The message arrived at Earth Defense Command 12 hours later. Prime Minister Joseph Grant read it in his office, surrounded by his top military advisors. Admiral Patricia Shaw sat across from him, her face hard. General Marcus Cole stood by the window, looking out at the city below. Dr. Lisa Kim reviewed data on her tablet. They formed a committee, Grant said quietly. 6 months to investigate. While our children rot in slave markets, Shaw said. Her voice was cold with rage. I have been waiting for this day, sir. Waiting for 20 years while we played nice with species that despise us. We tried the peaceful route, Cole added. We followed their rules. We accepted their treaties. We smiled when they insulted us and bowed when they threatened us. All because we believed we could be better than our past. Grant looked at each of them. Are we ready? Shaw nodded. 500 ships. Fully armed with technology 3 generations beyond what the galaxy thinks we have. We have been building in secret, preparing for the day someone pushed too far. Our Marines are trained and ready, Cole said. 10,000 of the best soldiers humanity has ever produced. They know what is at stake. Dr. Kim looked up from her tablet. The weapon systems are operational. Railguns, directed energy weapons, stealth technology. We kept all of this hidden, used old technology for our public fleet. They have no idea what we are capable of. Grant stood and walked to the window. Below him, the city bustled with ordinary life. People going to work, children going to school. A normal day on Earth. But on New Montana, parents grieved for missing children. 50 years, he said. We have been part of the galactic community for 50 years. We joined hoping to leave our violent history behind. We wanted to prove that humanity could be peaceful, that we had evolved past our warlike nature. He turned to face them. We were not weak. We were polite. There is a difference. The Vraxians did not understand that difference. The Council did not understand that difference. So we will teach them. Shaw stood. Orders, sir? Grant's face hardened. This was a man who had served in the military before entering politics. He knew what he was authorizing. He knew what it meant. Admiral Shaw, you have full authorization to deploy the defense fleet. Your mission is to rescue our children and to eliminate the Vraxian capacity to raid civilian populations. You will follow all rules of war. You will minimize civilian casualties. You will document everything for the historical record. He paused. And Admiral, make it clear to the galaxy that Earth's patience has limits. We tried peace. They chose war. Show them what that means, Shaw saluted. Yes, sir. It will be done. General Cole, begin deployment of ground forces. Dr. Kim, all weapon systems are authorized for operational use. They left to begin preparations. Grant returned to his desk and composed a message to Ambassador Rodriguez. Helen, the Council has failed us for the last time. I am authorizing military action. We will bring our children home, and we will make sure this never happens again. Thank you for your years of service. What comes next is not your fault. It is the fault of those who did nothing when they should have acted. He sent the message and then drafted another, this one to all human colonies, to all human settlements beyond Earth. The Vraxian Empire has attacked New Montana and enslaved our children. The Galactic Council has refused to act. Therefore, Earth is taking matters into our own hands. In the coming weeks, you will see military operations unlike anything the galaxy has witnessed. Do not be afraid. We are not seeking conquest. We are seeking justice. And we will not stop until every human child is safe, and every species understands that attacking humanity has consequences. Stand firm. Help is coming. Across the solar system, shipyards that had been building in secret for... The space around New Montana looked empty to Vraxian sensors. Commander Zarkoth had left a small garrison on the planet, just enough to maintain control and ensure no one tried to rebuild defenses. The main fleet had moved on to other targets. After all, humans never fought back. They complained to the Council, sent diplomatic messages, and eventually gave up. It was the easiest raid he had conducted in years. The Vraxian garrison commander was having his evening meal when his sensors suddenly went crazy. One moment, space was empty. The next 500 ships appeared out of nowhere, 500 human warships. He stared at the display in shock. This could not be right. Humans did not have 500 warships. They barely had 50 according to intelligence reports, and those were old, outdated vessels that posed no real threat. But these ships were different. They were massive, sleek, and their energy signatures were unlike anything in the Vraxian database. The garrison commander reached for his communication panel with shaking hands. Before he could send a warning, a voice filled every communication channel on every frequency. It was calm, cold, and absolutely certain. Vraxian forces, this is Admiral Patricia Shaw of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are occupying a human colony illegally. You have 60 seconds to power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. Resist, and we will show you why humanity does not make war like you do. The garrison commander felt fear for the first time in his military career. But pride and training took over. Vraxians did not surrender to humans. Vraxians were warriors. Humans were weak. He activated his weapons. All ships attack formation. We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the Empire. The Vraxian ships powered up their plasma cannons. They were good weapons, proven in hundreds of battles against other species. They had never failed. They fired first. The plasma bolts streaked toward the human fleet bright and deadly. They struck the lead ships, and the Vraxians expected to see explosions, debris, victory. Instead, the plasma splashed harmlessly against shields that should not exist. The human ships did not even slow down. Then the humans returned fire. The garrison commander saw bright flashes from the human vessels. He expected plasma, missiles, perhaps kinetic rounds like the old weapons humans used for trade escorts. What hit his ships was something else entirely. Railgun rounds, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Each projectile carried so much kinetic energy that Vraxian shields designed to deflect plasma and energy weapons might as well have been made of paper. The rounds punched through shields, through armor, through entire ships as if they were not even there. One moment, the garrison had 12 ships. The next moment, 6 of them simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no fire, just sudden catastrophic structural failure as hypersonic projectiles tore them apart at the molecular level. The remaining 6 ships tried to scatter, but missile swarms were already inbound. Hundreds of missiles, each one smarter and faster than anything the Vraxians could deploy. Their point defense systems tried to intercept, but there were too many. The missiles weaved through defensive fire like living things. 3 more ships exploded. 2 suffered critical damage and went dead in space. The commander's flagship was the only one still operational, and it would not be for long. The entire battle lasted 8 minutes. Admiral Shaw's voice came through again. "Stand down. You cannot win. Save your crew." The garrison commander powered down his weapons with shaking hands. Around his ship, human vessels moved in with military precision. He watched as boarding craft approached, smaller than Vraxian assault ships but moving with frightening efficiency. On the planet's surface, Jake Morrison heard the explosions in orbit. He ran to the command center where Laura Chen was monitoring the situation. "What is happening?" he asked. Laura's face showed shock and something like awe. "Earth sent a fleet. A huge fleet. They just destroyed the Vraxian garrison in minutes. And the children? Do they know where the children are?" Before Laura could answer, a new voice came through the comm system. "Colony leadership, this is Admiral Patricia Shaw. We are here to help. Ground forces are deploying to secure the remaining Vraxian presence on your world. Please stay in safe locations until we give the all clear." Jake grabbed a microphone. "Admiral, this is Jake Morrison. Do you know where they took our children?" There was a pause. "Colonel Morrison, we have extracted intelligence from the Vraxian ships. We know where the transport vessels went. Teams are already en route. We will bring them home." Jake felt tears burn his eyes. Hope. Real hope. For the first time since Danny was taken. On the surface, the remaining Vraxian soldiers prepared for an assault. They had fortified positions, heavy weapons, and the advantage of knowing the terrain. They were ready for the humans to attack like other species did. With orbital bombardment and mass infantry charges, the humans did not attack like other species. Colonel Sarah Martinez led the ground operation. Her Marines descended in stealth dropships, landing kilometers away from Vraxian positions. They moved through the darkness using night vision that turned night into day. Their armor absorbed sound and masked their heat signatures. The Vraxians never saw them coming. Martinez's teams used tactics refined over centuries of human warfare. They did not charge into fortified positions. Instead, they infiltrated, isolated, and neutralized. Small teams of 4 to 6 Marines moved like ghosts, taking out sentries, jamming communications, and planting charges on equipment. By the time the Vraxian commander realized he was under attack, half his troops were already captured. The other half found themselves surrounded by enemies they could barely see, let alone fight effectively. The ground operation took 2 hours. Not a single colonist was caught in the crossfire. Not a single building was unnecessarily damaged. The Marines extracted every Vraxian soldier, disarmed them, and prepared them for transport to holding facilities. It was surgical. It was precise. It was completely unlike anything the Vraxians had expected. While New Montana was being secured, other task forces were hitting targets across the sector. Commander Alex Harper commanded the stealth ship EDS Silent Strike, and his mission was to locate the children. The intelligence from captured Vraxian computers led them to Kepler Station, a notorious slave market on the edge of Vraxian space. It was supposed to be secret, but human intelligence had known about it for years. They had watched, documented, and waited for authorization to act. That authorization had finally come. Kepler Station was defended by a squadron of Vraxian warships and automated defense platforms. It should have been impregnable. The Silent Strike approached under full stealth. To Vraxian sensors, there was nothing there. Harper brought his ship within a few hundred meters of the station, close enough to deploy infiltration teams. 30 Marines in specialized armor crossed the gap in complete silence. They cut through the station's hull, entered the internal passages, and began systematically clearing it section by section. The slave market operators never knew what hit them. One moment they were conducting business. The next they were on the floor in restraints with human soldiers standing over them. The Marines found the children in a holding area, along with 3,000 other beings from a dozen different species. All of them were scheduled for auction the next day. Staff Sergeant Julie Parker was the first to reach them. She saw Danny Morrison sitting with a group of other human children, all of them looking scared and exhausted. When they saw her uniform, with the Earth Defense Force insignia, several children started crying with relief. "It's okay," Julie said gently, removing her helmet so they could see her face. "We're here to take you home. All of you. You're safe now." Danny stood up, tears streaming down his face. "My dad? Your dad is alive and waiting for you. Let's get you back to him." The evacuation was swift and efficient. Medical teams treated injuries and provided comfort. The other enslaved beings were also freed, with arrangements being made to return them to their homes. Commander Harper broadcast everything. Every freed slave, every piece of evidence, every document showing the scale of the operation. He sent it to Earth, to the Galactic Council, to every major news outlet in the galaxy. The galaxy needed to see what had been hidden, what the Council had ignored. When the defense fleet arrived at Kepler Station, the Marines had already secured it. The Vraxian warships tried to respond, but they faced the same overwhelming force that had destroyed the garrison at New Montana. Within a week, Admiral Shaw's fleet hit 12 more locations, slave markets, pirate bases, raiding stations. Each one fell with the same precision. The pattern was clear. Overwhelming force, minimal casualties, complete documentation. Humanity was not just winning battles. They were building a case, creating evidence that could not be denied or ignored. The transport ships carrying the children jumped back to New Montana 3 weeks after the initial raid. Jake Morrison stood in the landing area with hundreds of other parents, all of them waiting with desperate hope. The ramps lowered. The children came out, some walking on their own, others carried by Marines. Parents rushed forward, crying and laughing. Jake saw Danny and ran. His son spotted him and broke into a run too. They met in the middle, and Jake picked him up despite the fact that Danny was almost too big to be carried. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any before. Representatives arrived in a state of confusion and alarm. News feeds across the galaxy were showing the same images. Human warships destroying Vraxian positions, freed slaves being evacuated, and military operations conducted with precision that shocked even veteran observers. High Chancellor Mordak called the session to order, but his usual calm demeanor was gone. For the first time in his long life, he looked genuinely worried. The human military actions must be addressed immediately. They have launched unauthorized military operations across multiple systems, destroyed Vraxian assets, and are openly defying Council authority. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez attended via hologram. She no longer sat in her usual seat looking humble and patient. Instead, she stood at the center of the chamber floor and her expression was hard. "Unauthorized," she said. "Earth requested Council action 3 weeks ago. We showed you evidence of attacks on civilians. We showed you children being enslaved. You formed a committee." Senator Corval stood. "The Council must follow procedures. You cannot simply attack a member empire because of a single incident." "A single incident? We have documented evidence of over 300 raids by Vraxian forces in the last decade, 3,000 beings enslaved, dozens of colonies destroyed. All of this happened while you debated and formed committees." Helen activated her holographic display. Images filled the chamber, images that could not be denied. Slave markets with beings from every corner of the galaxy, pirates operating with Vraxian military equipment, children, not just human children but children from many species held in cages. Earth has freed over 5,000 enslaved beings in the past 3 weeks. Helen continued. "We have shut down 12 slave markets, eliminated 6 pirate bases, and captured thousands of criminals. We have documented everything. Every crime, every victim, every piece of evidence. Where was the Council for all of this?" The chamber was silent. Representatives who had been ready to condemn human actions now looked at the evidence and said nothing. A new voice spoke up. It was Representative Talvin from the Plenary Union, a species that had lost several colonies to raids. "Ambassador Rodriguez is correct. My people have begged for Council intervention for years. We were told to be patient, to follow procedures. Meanwhile, our people suffered." Another representative stood, this time from the Taldarian Confederacy. "The humans have accomplished in 3 weeks what the Council failed to do in decades. Perhaps we should be thanking them instead of condemning them." Mordak tried to restore order. "Be that as it may, the humans have violated numerous treaties. They have attacked without Council authorization. This cannot be allowed to stand." "Then stop us," Helen said quietly. The chamber went dead silent. "You claim Earth is violating treaties. You claim we are destabilizing the sector. Then do something about it. Send your fleets. Enforce your rules. Or admit that you cannot." No one spoke. The truth hung in the air like a weight. The Council had no military force capable of stopping Earth. They had relied on diplomacy and the threat of sanctions for centuries. But what good were sanctions against a species that was doing what everyone knew was right? Helen continued. "Earth gave the Council a chance. We played by your rules for 50 years. We endured insults, raids, and losses because we believed in the system. But when our children were taken, when we came to you with evidence and pleaded for help, you did nothing. So we did what any species would do. We protected our own, and we are not stopping. Every slave will be freed. Every pirate base will be eliminated. Every species that has suffered will see justice. You can join us or you can stay out of our way. What you cannot do is stop us." Senator Corval tried one more time. "This is illegal. This is an act of war against a Council member empire." "Then the Council should have stopped the Vraxians before we had to," Helen replied. "You want to talk about illegal acts? How about enslaving children? How about raiding civilian colonies? Where were the consequences for those illegal acts?" She looked around the chamber. "The age of empty words is over. Earth will continue its operations. Any species that wishes to join us in bringing justice to this sector is welcome. Any species that wishes to protect slavers and pirates should know that we will treat them accordingly." Helen disconnected. For a moment the Council chamber was completely silent. Then chaos erupted as representatives argued, debated, and tried to understand what had just happened. Within days, the political landscape of the galaxy shifted. The Plenary Union formally announced their support for Earth's actions. The Taldarian Confederacy did the same. A dozen smaller species, all of whom had suffered under raids and piracy, began reaching out to Earth. A coalition was forming, not against humanity, but with them, on Vraxis Prime. The Vraxian homeworld panic was setting in. The military command had dismissed early reports of defeats as impossible. Humans could not have that kind of technology or capability. It must be exaggerated, but the reports kept coming. Defeat after defeat, bases destroyed, fleets scattered, and the humans were not even using their full strength. Supreme Commander Rakthor called an emergency meeting of his top officers. On the holographic display, red marks showed every position they had lost. "There were dozens of them. How is this possible?" he demanded. "We have the most powerful military in the sector. We have conquered dozens of worlds. How can one species do this to us in 3 weeks?" His chief scientist, a Vraxian named Zorval, pulled up technical data. "We analyzed the wreckage from our destroyed ships. Their weapons are unlike anything we have seen. Railguns firing projectiles at speeds we cannot match, shields that deflect our plasma weapons, stealth technology that makes their ships invisible to our sensors. Where did they get this technology? They developed it themselves. Our intelligence was wrong. We assumed the ships we saw in their merchant fleet represented their true capability. We were mistaken. They have been hiding their real military strength for decades." Rakthor felt cold fear in his gut. "How long before they reach our homeworld?" "At their current rate of advance, 2 weeks. Maybe less. Can we stop them?" Zorval hesitated. "No, not with conventional tactics. They are better armed, better trained, and their technology is superior. We would need to completely change our approach to warfare, and we do not have time for that." The room fell silent. For centuries, Vraxians had been the predators. Now they understood what it felt like to be prey. Across the galaxy, other species were having similar conversations. Scientists analyzed human technology and realized how far behind they were. Military strategists studied human tactics and recognized patterns from asymmetric warfare. Special operations and combined arms doctrine, concepts that most galactic species had never developed. A Quellan researcher named Peltier published a paper that went viral across galactic networks. It was titled, "The Death World Factor: Understanding Human Military Capability." In the paper, he explained that Earth was what scientists called a death world, a planet where survival required constant adaptation to threats. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. Humans had evolved to survive all of it. Then they had turned that survival instinct on each other. Human history was full of wars, each one teaching new lessons in violence and strategy. They had refined the art of killing for thousands of years. Peltier concluded, "We mistook human restraint for human weakness. They chose peace because they understood the cost of war better than any other species. When we forced them to fight, we learned what that experience had created. The humans are not warriors despite being peaceful. They are peaceful because they are the best warriors the galaxy has ever seen." The paper changed how many species viewed humanity overnight, Admiral. Shaw's fleet arrived at Vraxis Prime, exactly 2 weeks after leaving New Montana. 500 warships took position around the planet, and the entire Vraxian population watched in fear. The Vraxian military prepared for bombardment, for invasion, for destruction. Instead, Admiral Shaw sent a message. "People of Vraxis Prime, this is Admiral Patricia Shaw of Earth. Your military has committed crimes against innocent beings across this sector. Your government has built an empire on slavery and violence. That empire ends today. We could destroy your world. We have the power. But we are not you. We do not make war on civilians. We offer terms. Complete disarmament of your military. War crimes trials for all those responsible for raids and slavery. Constitutional reforms to ensure democratic governance. Reparations to the victims of your crimes. Accept these terms and there will be peace. Refuse and we will dismantle your civilization piece by piece until someone more reasonable takes control. You have 24 hours to decide." The message was broadcast on every channel in every language. The Vraxian people heard it. They saw the human fleet in orbit. They understood that their government could not protect them. Supreme Commander Rakthor wanted to fight. He called for a heroic last stand. But his officers, seeing the reality of the situation, refused. Within hours, a military coup removed the old leadership. A new government led by moderate Vraxians who had opposed the raids contacted Admiral Shaw. We accept your terms. Commander Zarkoth and all others responsible for raids will be handed over for trial. We will disarm. We will pay reparations. 10 years after the raid on New Montana, Jake Morrison stood at the memorial site built in the center of the colony. The simple stone structure bore the names of the 37 colonists who had died defending their families. Around it, flowers bloomed in colors native to Earth, brought here by the thousands of new settlers who had arrived in the years since. New Montana had grown. What started as 15,000 colonists had become a thriving city of 60,000. Ships came and went daily, bringing trade and travelers. The scars of the attack had healed, replaced by prosperity and hope. But the memorial remained, a reminder of what had been lost and what had been learned. Danny Morrison, now 22 years old, approached his father. He wore the uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps, the same organization that had been formed to help rebuild relationships across the galaxy. He had grown into a confident young man, though the shadows of his childhood trauma still touched his eyes sometimes. "Ready for the ceremony?" Danny asked. Jake nodded. "Are you nervous?" "A little. It is not every day you help negotiate peace between two species that have been fighting for a century." Jake smiled with pride. "You will do great. You always do." Danny had dedicated his life to diplomacy after his rescue. He wanted to prevent what had happened to him from happening to others. In 10 years, he had become one of the most respected mediators in the galaxy, known for his patience, wisdom, and deep understanding of trauma. The ceremony began at noon. Representatives from 40 species gathered around the memorial. Laura Chen, now retired from her position as governor but still active in colony affairs, spoke first. 10 years ago, our world changed forever. We lost friends, family, and for a time, our hope. But we learned that we were not alone. Earth came for us. Earth brought us justice. And from that moment, the galaxy began to change. She gestured to the crowd. Today, representatives from dozens of worlds stand here with us. Not because they fear Earth, but because they respect what Earth stands for. Justice, protection of the innocent, and the courage to act when action is needed. Admiral Patricia Shaw, now retired but still influential in military circles, spoke next. Her hair had gone gray, but her eyes remained sharp and her voice strong. The Earth Defense Fleet was built for one purpose: to protect humanity wherever we might be. For decades, we held back, hoping diplomacy would be enough. When it was not, we acted. Some called it aggression. History will remember it as justice. She paused, looking at the memorial. We remember those who fell. We honor their sacrifice, and we promise that their deaths were not in vain. The galaxy is safer because of what happened here. The Galactic Assembly had replaced the old council, and it was a very different organization. Instead of endless debates without action, the Assembly had real enforcement power. A joint military force commanded by officers from multiple species, but heavily influenced by human doctrine, stood ready to respond to threats. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez, still serving as Earth's primary representative, had helped write the new charter. It included strict rules about protecting civilians, immediate intervention for humanitarian crises, and transparent governance. Not every species had joined. Some still clung to the old ways, refusing to accept the new order, but they found themselves increasingly isolated. Trade favored assembly members. Technology sharing benefited those who followed the rules. The holdouts slowly realized they could not compete alone. The Vraxian Republic had become one of Earth's closest allies, though the transformation had been difficult. The younger generation of Vraxians, raised under the new democratic system, rejected their empire's violent past. They studied human history, learning how civilizations could change and grow beyond their worst impulses. Commander Zarkoth remained in his rehabilitation facility. He spent his days teaching courses on ethics and the dangers of believing your own superiority. Former raiders attended his lectures, learning from someone who had lived the consequences of such beliefs. His remorse was genuine, though it could never undo what he had done. At the ceremony, a young Vraxian woman named Kira approached Jake. She was part of the new generation, born after the fall of the Empire. "Mr. Morrison, I wanted to thank you. My people did terrible things. Your people stopped us and then helped us become better. That mercy means everything to my generation." Jake looked at her, this young person who bore no responsibility for the crimes of her elders, but carried the weight of that history anyway. Your generation is not defined by what came before. You are defined by what you choose to do now, and from what I see, you are choosing well. The Galactic Academy, once a place where humans were dismissed and underestimated, had been reformed. Human military history became required study, not to glorify war but to understand it. Students learned about World War II, about the strategies and tactics that had shaped humanity. They learned about the Cold War, about deterrence and the dangers of unchecked power. Most importantly, they learned why humans chose peace despite being capable of such violence. Professor Peltier, the Quellen researcher who had written about the death world factor, now taught at the academy. His course on human civilization was the most popular in the school. Humans are not peaceful because they are weak, he would tell his students. They are peaceful because they know the true cost of war. They have experienced it on a scale most species cannot imagine. Every human military strategy is written in the blood of their own people. That is why they tried so hard to avoid conflict, and that is why, when forced to fight, they are unstoppable. As the ceremony at New Montana continued, Prime Minister Joseph Grant, now in his final year of service, addressed the crowd via hologram from Earth. My fellow sentients, 10 years ago, we stood at a crossroads. The old ways had failed. Violence and exploitation were accepted as normal. The strong preyed on the weak, and those with the power to stop it chose inaction. That era ended at New Montana. Earth did not want to be conquerors. We came to the stars hoping for peace. We endured insults and losses because we believed in something better. But when our children were taken, we learned that patience has limits, politeness has boundaries. What followed was not revenge. It was justice. We freed the enslaved. We stopped the raiders. We built a new system that protects everyone, not just the powerful. And we did it while maintaining our values. We did not become the monsters we fought. He paused, his expression serious. But let me be clear. This memorial is not just a remembrance. It is a warning. Earth was polite. We followed the rules. We gave chances. When all of that failed, we showed what lies beneath our restraint. We prefer peace. We will always choose peace first. We will negotiate, compromise, and seek understanding. But we will never again choose peace at the cost of innocent lives. We will never accept injustice because it is convenient, and we will never stand by while children suffer. This is Earth's warning to the galaxy. We are done being polite when politeness enables evil. The age of empty diplomacy is over. The age of justice has begun. Choose your path wisely. The speech received a standing ovation, not from fear, but from respect and agreement. The galaxy had learned its lesson. After the ceremony, Jake and Danny walked through the colony together. The town had been rebuilt better than before. Parks filled spaces where buildings once burned. Schools taught children from a dozen different species. The spaceport handled ships from across the galaxy. Do you ever think about that day? Danny asked quietly. Every day, Jake admitted. I think about the colonists we lost. I think about how scared you must have been. I think about whether I did enough. You did everything you could. And you got us back, not just me. Earth got you back. Every human. Every ally. Everyone who believed that what happened was wrong and needed to be fixed. Danny stopped walking and looked at his father. I spent years angry about what happened. Angry at the Vraxians, at the council, at everyone who let it happen. But working as a diplomat taught me something. Anger is not enough. You have to channel it into something constructive. That is wise, Jake said. I learned it from watching how Earth handled everything. We could have destroyed the Vraxians. We had the power, but we chose rehabilitation over revenge. We chose building over destroying. That is real strength. They reached the edge of town where the farms began. The golden fields stretched to the horizon, peaceful and productive. New Montana had become a symbol of resilience and hope. A transport ship descended toward the spaceport. Jake watched it land. That is the delegation from the Kepler system. They want to join the assembly. The same Kepler where the slave market was? The same. We turned that station into a refugee processing center. Now it helps people instead of hurting them. The local government saw what we did and wants to be part of it. Change is possible, Danny said. It is. But sometimes it takes force to create the opportunity for change. We tried asking nicely for 50 years. It did not work. Sometimes the universe needs a push. As the sun set over New Montana, casting long shadows across the memorial, families gathered for evening meals. Children played in parks. Ships departed for distant stars. Life went on, safer, and better than before. In the years that followed, the galaxy continued to evolve. Some conflicts remained. Some species resisted change. But the assembly stood firm.